I was officially appointed in July. And it was wonderful because I found out about the commission and there was vacancies. And I wanted to get involved because for us in our rural community, so I know sometimes we don't always have the outlets, unfortunately, on the Eastern Shore that other people have. Because when you're in a rural community, it can be really hard to get people to have that voice for you. I think sometimes when there's not someone there at that level to advocate, it's sometimes harder to get it voiced because not everyone has the ability because of where they live. Or I mean, just think of someone on a remote island area like Smith Island in that Pacific instance. I Even though I guess I'm a transplant, I'm here and I can hear and I hear the lack of feeling like they're being heard. And I think just being there and caring makes such a difference for someone. So I think listening is one of the most empathetic acts you can do for a person. Sometimes I think when we talk about disability, we forget that disability impacts everyone in a certain way. I did a speech at a congregation once, and I said, sometimes we talk about disability and we forget that, like, for example, the elderly. As we get older, we use mobility devices, for example, canes, for example, or glasses, and that's one way we can kind of correlate it to someone like me, for example, with a wheelchair. So you need glasses to see a little bit better. I need a wheelchair to maneuver. And when we use things like that, it's a really easy way to use sensitivity. Because when we talk about disability, it's a really way to normalize that this is a wheelchair. This is how I move around. And I think COVID's showing that accessibility is a really great way to show love and sensitivity and empathy. Because I think when we show that accessibility is love and kindness, it really helps people to listen. You said active listening is one of the nicest and kindest things that you can do for another person. And COVID's showing you that you can create those doors and open that and remove those barriers for other people. But sometimes people won't listen or, won't remove those barriers for people with disabilities because they think, oh, it's too hard or it's just too tough time. But I think if you do actively listen to someone, you'll see that, sometimes we're all impacted by these problems in our own specific ways. And some communities are impacted worse than others. But if we all listen, we can all kind of see that these issues impact everyone. And like social isolation, the disability community has suffers with this a lot. Like I have, I've been in the ICU, and it's not a fun place. It's very traumatizing, and that's, I understand. That's why I think active listening has been so important to me in my whole life. But I think, when you sit back and you take a chance to listen to someone, you can always, learn. And I just think sometimes our we always have a lot of assumptions about people sometimes in society, and that's what harms us the most. So many have fears almost, and I think we can't get better unless someone like me answers them, because not everyone has the ability to. And I think that's actually how we would bridge that gap, by having someone like me, an advocate, answer them, because so many spaces become more accessible by having me answer them. So many times people want to learn more about the disability community, but they're afraid to ask the wrong question, or they don't know anyone that is disabled. But I want to answer them because I think we get better by having someone like me answer the questions. Because disability is not, not a bad word, and disabled's not a bad word. And I think sometimes when people look at me, and the girl in the pink wheelchair, they want to ask questions, but they're afraid. And I say, you can do it. It's okay. If you come up to me, you'll I love making new friends. I'm a gabbermouth, but two, you won't stare at the next person with a disability and make them feel bad, because the next person you meet might not have the self-esteem or self-confidence to handle you staring at them. Sometimes it really hurts people, but it's okay for me because I'm used to it, and it's okay. And I want to be the person, the advocate that makes it okay for the next person. Because I think that first question is sometimes what keeps people with the most trepidation, because they don't know the first question. And that first question is sometimes the huge gap, because sometimes I can see it, people will stare at me and they don't know. And I always say hi because I just say hi. And because sometimes they don't know. And it's like you can say hi. And once from there, it's okay. But I think when you're honest and transparent, it makes people so much at ease that they can just ask you things. I'm a big fan of always seeing the good in the world and the good in people. I know some people. I know there's pessimists, but I'm like Mr. Rogers. I love my neighbors. So